What's up, everyone? It's your boy Norin, Radd89 here to finish the Final Destination review series as we are finally on to Final Destination Bloodlines. Went to the theaters to go check it out, and this is very exciting because, fun fact, this is officially the first Final Destination film I've ever seen in theaters. If I could speak. Sorry, I worked last night. You know what happens when I work those 10-hour shifts. Sometimes I'm all over the place. But yes, this is the first Final Destination film that I ever saw in the theaters. So as far as in the history of the series, it's always been home video watches or buying them on DVD or buying them on Blu-ray kind of thing. That's how I've been watching them and everything. So let's hear the positives and negatives and the rating for Final Destination Bloodlines. Let's do this. Roll it. So Final Destination Bloodlines is the first Final Destination film in over a decade, which is pretty intense. That is very exciting. They waited a good amount of time, and I think sometimes that's a good thing. That's a positive right away, just a nitpick, and not nitpicky positive, awesome positive that I want to talk about, but it's a little one that has to do with just kind of the production of it. I think sometimes it's really cool to wait that long to get another entry in your franchise because it's just like an old cousin revisiting. You haven't seen in like 5-8 years, and you have them come over and you're like, oh my God, it's so amazing to see you. That's kind of how it feels when you go see a Final Destination film and it's been over a decade, you know what I mean? Especially when you go to theaters. So let's talk about positives right away. Is that Bloodlines, I think for me, easily right off the bat is my second favorite. It just has so many awesome lore stuff in it, and I wanted more, but there is so much that they do to tie in the other films and to just make this a bigger film. And that's what I mean I love about this one. In terms of the scope of it, it feels like the biggest when they introduce some of the ideas and some of the lore moments and stuff like that. Also, we have some really cool characters in here. We have Iris, who is the premonition that we see in this film, which is when we're seeing the collapse of this giant, like the Space Needle, that building, and it's like the restaurant on the top, and you see it in the trailer and stuff. But when you're seeing that collapse, that's actually Iris's premonition, but we as fans or viewers, when we're watching it, see it through Stephanie, who is our lead protagonist in this film, and she's having nightmares of Iris, who is her grandmother, her premonition from the 50s. So I think that is really cool, and especially the fact that we get a premonition that is predated and it actually has something else. It's a period piece. I love that. I'm a sucker for period pieces, so I'm all there for that. One other positive I want to talk about is the fact that Stephanie and her family are the leads in this film, and I think they do a great job making this more personal. It feels bigger in scope because of Death's plan and what they introduce in terms of ideas in this film, but it feels more personal because as characters, it's an actual family. We're used to just seeing friends or a bunch of strangers, a bunch of random people that met on a highway or on a freaking bridge or at a NASCAR place, and they come together and have to work together. This one, like I said, it's a little more personal because you have a family. They have family dynamics. They know each other, and just the comedy in here, I think, is really good. I think that actually lands a lot. And in terms of funniness, I think this is probably, I want to say, the funniest one where it lands, where I'm laughing and I'm just having such a good time with these characters, and that again makes it hurt a little bit more when you see them die. And the deaths in here are pretty creative, and I think in terms of the death sequences, they do a really good job where they play with you in this one a little bit. They tease you, and they do some things that they hadn't done in the previous film. We also have to talk about Tony Todd's scene. Rest in peace. We love you. We miss you, Tony Todd, and I think his scene was just, I'm trying not to get emotional, but I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's just, it was absolute perfection. And I think the way they handled it, the creators, and even the way they wrote his character into the story and what his character means to the film and to the franchise, it's just great. This is always going to be one of my favorite horror franchises, and I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's climbing a little bit more every day when I think about it, because yes, it is very simple, and there's been so many films that have just kind of copycatted and rehashed and done the same thing. But in terms of the franchise as a whole, the tropes that it's introduced into the universe and the horror fans and just all the stuff that is brought to us, I love this franchise. And yes, I give the creators a lot of props because, like I said, what they did with William, that's Williams as his character, Tony Todd's character in the film, introducing him, just having him in the story and introducing his backstory, which is really cool. I think that's fascinating. Like I said, his scene was absolute perfection. So let's talk about the mixed and negatives. Like I said, I had a bunch of glowing positives right there. There are a couple things that did bother me about this film. There are a few characters. I know I told you about this. I love the fact that it's personal and it's a small, close family, and it's, you get to know all these characters, but there's a couple members of the family that just kind of vanish. Like the father character and the aunt character, they disappear. They completely disappear. Not like they die. They just vanish, and they don't even help the other ones do anything about it. So, I know one of them, the father character, kind of blame. You could kind of go with the ideas he doesn't believe them. He doesn't believe in the whole death's coming for them thing, so that's why he kind of vanishes into the background. But literally in the third act, they kind of disappear. And when we're talking about the third act, it does feel a little rushed. It feels like the rest of the film has time to breathe, because this is the longest Final Destination film, and I'm not complaining about the running time. It was justified because they needed to introduce a lot of things and what they discussed in this film. But when it comes to the third act itself, I do feel it's a bit rushed, and we get into it, and then before you know it, it's kind of over. One other nitpicky negative is I like our lead protagonist, the actress, Stephanie. I think she's great. I like her character, but there are moments where she's a little bit overshadowed by some of the other characters in her family, and that's just because I love them so much. I had a lot of fun with them and stuff like that, but it's just there's some moments here and there where her brothers and her cousins, they kind of, they overshadow just a tiny bit, take the scenes, and they're scene stealers. But that's just to mean that there's a lot of good characters in this film. So, but glowing recommendations and the positives. I highly recommend you all check this one out. And like I said, seeing it in theaters, being the first Final Destination film that I've ever seen in theaters, that's a huge thing. I'm always going to remember that. And Final Destination Bloodlines, the rating, y'all came for the rating. The Radd rating for this bad boy is going to be an 8.5 out of 10. It's a lot of fun. One of my favorite horror films that I've seen this year, and it's going to be probably, like I said, when we get to the later in the year so far, top 10, it's in there. When we get later in the year, I think Final Destination Bloodlines is going to be in my top 10 horror of the year, because, like I said, it's just so much fun. It was a funny movie. It introduced lore moments. I love the characters, and I think this one has some of the best introduction stuff in terms of creating new ideas, and also that Tony Todd scene. There is some CGI in here, and that's also a negative I want to sprinkle in, is there is an overabundance of CGI, but I'm a little bit more comfortable with it in this one, because there's literally things they tried to do that you just cannot accomplish without computer generated effects. But please let me know down below in the comment section, what are your thoughts on Final Destination Bloodlines? Is this one of your favorites in the franchise, or did it highly miss the mark for you? I would love to discuss with you in the comment section. But like the video, that definitely helps out the channel. Subscribe if you're new, and have that notification bell poked so you're notified anytime I drop a video, because you don't want to miss the Final Destination ranking video that is coming out next. Thank you for sticking around, y'all, but most importantly, y'all know what's up. Have a safe and happy day. Peace out.